Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to serve you. I feel highly unqualified to speak about sadhana for leaders to so many of Srila Prabhupada's leaders within our society. So I haven't come as your teacher. I've just come as a little servant to share some of the things that we all have received from Srila Prabhupada's teachings over the years. This little collection of quotes from Srila Prabhupada has been distributed to all of you. Truly, this is only a drop from a large ocean of Srila Prabhupada's words on the utmost importance of sadhana for all devotees, and especially for leaders. Srila Prabhupada writes here on May 2nd, 1972, simply become more concerned with increasing the spiritual content of our lives, and in this way all other problems like management will be easily solved. Not that they can be solved by making some legal formula and having big meetings and talks. April 14th, 1973, Srila Prabhupada he spoke this in a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture. Without hearing and chanting, to become a leader, it is impossible. You can become leader in the material world, but not in the spiritual world. And a letter, 6th September 1974. So far as being leader is concerned, leader means spiritually, not materially. This you should understand very clearly. If spiritual potency and strength is there, then material intelligence will automatically follow. We must have a solid foundation of chanting and following the regulative principles. Then one is fit to lead others. I hope you understand this point. We quoted this morning to Radhanath Swami, 1972. So as president, now you will be forced to advance in Krishna consciousness, because you must always set the highest example yourself. And I think that this is Krishna's special favoring you. Try to always see the highest purity is maintained in all respects. Become yourself very convinced of this Krishna philosophy. Be always preaching and trying to understand some basic points from different angles of vision. Keep the devotees in your temple always satisfied and jolly, and that will be your success. Srila Prabhupada is putting such emphasis on this foundational principle. There's a very famous interaction between Srila Prabhupada and His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj, who's coming today. During Prabhupada's last days, he asked Giriraj Maharaj, how will this movement go on? And he said, by chanting Hare Krishna, sadhana, something like that. And Prabhupada said, by organization. Now, how does that fit in this? It fits perfectly. Srila Prabhupada emphasized that, but it must be in the context of how much its sadhana bhakti is being emphasized. And Srila Prabhupada explains it right here. It was understood to Giriraj Maharaj, obviously after all these years of being devotee, how the basic foundation of everything we do spiritually is on our sadhana, our taking shelter of hearing and chanting in the association of devotees. But then it takes intelligence and organization and sincere unity to actually build on that foundation. And this is, I think, the basis of education in Krishna consciousness. And it's the basis of this college. How to inspire a very, very strong spiritual foundation through hearing and chanting and following the 9 processes of devotional service. And then how to truly educate people how to organize and build upon that foundation. A society where Srila Prabhupada writes in this letter to Hridayananda Goswami, where all the devotees are satisfied and jolly. I remember in my early years, I heard Srila Prabhupada say, it was in India, he said a devotee could be happy either living under a tree or living in a palace. Because a devotee's happiness simply is in chanting Hare Krishna, associating with devotees, and taking a little prasad. Hearing and chanting. And that's where our satisfaction, that's where our fulfillment is. And all the organizational plans and all the projects we develop should be coming from that inner fulfillment. Srila Prabhupada quotes Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he tells that Sravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, is the nourishment, the foodstuffs that gives strength to a devotee. Just like we have our Srinathji Prabhu and Keshav Prabhu, they run huge international corporations. But in order for them to do their work, they put time to eat every day, some food. So in whatever services we perform, our spiritual strength is going to come by our sadhana, by regularly hearing and chanting. And in some of these letters that are here in this collection that was passed out, we'll find Srila Prabhupada especially talking to leaders and expressing his great concern that we have GBCs and presidents who are falling down because they're not sincerely following the regulative principles of hearing and chanting. So the trap of Maya is sometimes as we make progress in our ability to speak, our ability to influence others, ability to accomplish projects, as we expand our influence of people looking up to us, we think that we don't have as much necessity to really perform our sadhana, our hearing and chanting, as we did when we were new devotees. But what Srila Prabhupada's warning us again and again is the more we become leaders, the more we have responsibility, the more the necessity there is to perform our sadhana well. We never outgrow grow it. That famous exchange where someone asked Srila Prabhupada, what do you hope to get by chanting Hare Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada said, the goal of chanting Hare Krishna is to chant Hare Krishna. Now we are chanting to purify our hearts, but when our hearts become pure, then we chant out of love. Actual advancement is Kirtaniya Sada Hari, where we really have a taste to always chant Hare Krishna. If we think we're becoming advanced because we're accomplishing many things, but we don't have the taste for chanting the holy names, and we don't really feel the need or the time, something is imbalanced. Because if we're actually making spiritual progress, our enthusiasm to chant will be more than ever. So complacency is one of the great challenges as we make progress in Krishna consciousness. New devotees are oftentimes very afraid to make offenses to other Vaishnavas. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that offenses to Vaishnavas is mad elephant offense. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has spoken, just do two things. Chant Hare Krishna always and don't criticize others. And Lord Chaitanya said, I will take you back to Godhead. So he's really emphasizing the importance of the offenses to the holy name, to avoid them. So when we're new devotees and we hear this, most of us were very afraid of offending devotees. But the tendency and the trap of Maya, as we start getting more knowledgeable, more expert at performing various types of devotional activities, we become complacent. We become kind of familiar with the process of bhakti. And then we think that now I'm an advanced devotee. I could say anything I want. There's no problem offending anybody. And sometimes we do it, and we're still doing well. Sometimes we stop, we're not chanting very well, and still I'm being empowered. But that won't last. Krishna warns us, it's just a matter of time till we begin to lose our taste and lose our intelligence of how to actually have the spirit, the character of a devotee. So in this sense, it's very important that as leaders in our sangam together, we really have to keep reminding each other that these basic principles of chanting our 16 rounds attentively and learning to take shelter of the holy name and reading Srila Prabhupada's books and discussing Srila Prabhupada's books. In one letter here, Srila Prabhupada's explaining the foundational principle that will keep us strong in Krishna consciousness is chanting our 16 rounds, following the 4 regular principles, coming to morning and evening classes, rising early and cleaning ourselves and going to Mangalarti and living with the character of a devotee. Otherwise, whatever position we're in, however high it may be, we will likely fall down if we don't take this seriously. If we build a big, big skyscraper of achievements, but our foundation isn't strong, then the inevitable storms of this world is going to make us collapse. And what is that foundation Srila Prabhupada is explaining here? Chanting the holy name sincerely. And chanting sincerely means to really be chanting with the character of a Vaishnava without making aparads. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada would say, and he would say this to all the devotees, from the newest to the GBCs and presidents, he said, your problem is you are not afraid enough of Maya. Maya is very powerful. And the more accomplished we become, the more we're her target. We should know that. She's going to try much harder as we seem to be making a bigger influence in the world with Krishna consciousness. So when we know that this is a fact and it is true, it's not maybe, the more we become accomplished and the more we have influence over others to bring Prabhupada's message to the world, the more Maya is going to try to attack us. Subtly, grossly, whatever way works. From her perspective, she knows every weakness we have, and she's going to be after us. But Krishna tells Kaunteya Pratijani that his devotee will never perish. He will protect his devotee. But that means as we're actually taking more responsibility and as we are developing in our Krishna consciousness, in our service, there is a greater and greater need to take shelter of the simple, basic, foundational principles, which are so important. I was recently reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's visit to Bangladesh. In those days it was East Bengal. And at that time he hadn't begun the Sankirtan movement yet. He was Nimai Pandit. He was the teacher. And what 12 years of the topmost teachers, what you would have to learn from them, you could learn from Nimai Pandit in 2 months. So who wouldn't want to be his student? He went to East Bengal, and thousands of people, they were so grateful. Their hearts were so open because of their gratitude to receive his lessons. And he was there for some months. And then when he was about to leave, all these people were offering gifts. Many were saying, we'll go back to Navadvip with you. We'd never want to leave you. And then one very special person named Tapan Mishra came to meet the Lord. And it describes how Tapan Mishra was a Brahmin, and a very learned Brahmin, who scrutinizingly was studying so many scriptures and meeting so many saintly people, yogis and rishis and mahatmas and babajis. He wanted to know what is the goal of life and how to achieve it. What is the sadhya and the sadhana? And through so many teachers and so many scriptures, he got so many mixed directions. And he was chanting a mantra to Krishna. He was praying to Krishna from the core of his heart, give me directions. What is the goal of life and how to achieve it? And one night a divine person appeared to him in a dream and said, you are very fortunate because now your questions will be answered. Go to Nimai Pandit. He's here in East Bengal. He is Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, acting as a human being. But do not tell anyone the secret. So Nimai was sitting on the bank of the Padmavati River, and many, many people were there. And at that time, Tapan Mishra, this very exalted Brahmin, came and did his Dandavat pranams and touched the Lord's feet. And then he stood up and he said, I am most fallen. I'm a lost soul. I'm unqualified, but please tell me, what is the sadhya and sadhana? What is the highest goal of life and how to achieve it? Nimai said, you are very fortunate because you are seeking the answers to this question. And now I will tell you. The highest goal of life is to love Krishna. And the sadhana, the way to achieve it, is to worship him by chanting his holy names. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then spoke this famous verse, Harinama, Harinama, Harinameva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. In this age of Kali Yuga, there is no other alternative than the chanting of the names of Hari. And after reciting this verse, Lord Chaitanya said, chant this Mahamantra of 32 syllables and 16 names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And by chanting these holy names of Krishna, the seed of love of God that is within your heart will sprout. So simple. But this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaching the world through his devotee. The goal of life is only one, to awaken the dormant love for Krishna that is within the heart of every living being. And in this age of Kali, there's only one way to do it. And that is the chanting of the holy names. There is no alternative. Srila Prabhupada had such faith in this principle. When he said when he went on Jaladuta and arrived in New York, he had really no money. He didn't know anybody. He was old. He was sickly. But he had two things. He had some boxes of Srimad Bhagavatam that he translated and wrote purports. And he had complete faith in the order of his spiritual master to spread the glories of the chanting of the holy names. Because of his faith in the power of the holy names, he was confident beyond any material logic. What was impossible was natural for him. And this was what he tried to impress us. And we never outgrow this. This is the foundational basis of our whole society. Our attachment to congregationally come together and chant the holy names. In a purport to Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, he writes that there's two types of chanting. There's japa and there's kirtan, congregational. And he says anyone who thinks that only japa without congregational chanting is enough and doesn't understand and respect the need of the congregational chanting will be misled. So Srila Prabhupada emphasized these two things. Chant at least 16 rounds every day. In one purport he said, whoever we are, if we are not very careful to attentively and sincerely chant at least 16 rounds every day, then at any moment we will fall victim to Maya. That's a warning to all of us, for the brand new devotees, and it's especially as we progress in the years of Krishna consciousness, it becomes even more magnified, the importance of that instruction. And Srila Prabhupada is writing in some of these letters that real leadership is to take the responsibility to be an example in this way. And he said, if we really make that inner connection through our sadhana, then our managerial problems can be easily solved. Srila Prabhupada, he taught us through his example how to see that spiritual potential in other people. This is really the essence of preaching. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it talks about the Panchatattva and their associates. They broke open the storehouse of love of God. They tasted the contents, and then they distributed it without discrimination of who was fit or unfit. First, they broke it open and tasted and enjoyed it, and then they distributed it. So as preachers, it's very important. How did they break open this storehouse? They broke open the storehouse and they tasted it through the chanting of the holy names. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established the Sankirtan movement, at the beginning, it was just with the devotees in Srivasangam or Chandrasekhar Bhavan. They would chant together. And then from there, they tasted the sweetness of the holy names, they shared it together, and they distributed it. Haridas Thakur was he's the Namacharya. He was preaching. He preached to Maya Devi, he preached to prostitutes, he preached to kings that wanted to kill him, he preached to innocent people, he preached everywhere he was going. But never did he neglect chanting his 300,000 names every day. He's the Acharya. That means he's teaching by his example. And we have to take that example very, very carefully. By Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we're not expected to chant 192 rounds, 300,000 names. But Prabhupada said, if you chant your 16 rounds sincerely and attentively, and you regularly, Nastaprayeshu Bhadreshu, read from my books and discuss among each other the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, then you will be empowered by Krishna. When Krishna reveals that bhakti within ourselves, then we actually can perceive the potential in others. In so many ways. Through our sadhana, through our devotion, and you cannot separate character from our sadhana. The character of how we treat each other, of how we live, is inseparable from our sadhana. If we think we can just chant Hare Krishna and then make aparads and be arrogant, then what is the quality of our chanting Hare Krishna? Trinadapi sunichena taror iba sehishmana amanina manatena kirtaniya sadahari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, put this verse on the string of the holy name and wear it always. Putting it on the string of the holy names means the name of the Lord, our chanting, should never be separated from this principle. And this verse, Trinadapi Sunichena, to be humble, to be tolerant and forgiving, to offer respects, to not expect respect. It's not just when we're chanting that we're supposed to be like that. Our life is supposed to be molded according to these principles of seva. When we're told by Srila Prabhupada and our Acharyas to avoid the 10 offenses to the holy names, that doesn't mean just when we're chanting japa. It means 24 hours a day. And according to our service attitude through the day, according to how we guard against the offenses, according to how we live by this principle of Trinadapi Sunichena, then when we actually sit down to chant japa or we're in the kirtan of the holy names with the other Vaishnavas, then we're going to actually Krishna's going to reveal his grace through the holy names to us. So Srila Prabhupada, in many of these letters that have been given out to you, talks about regulative principles, chanting Hare Krishna as the most prominent of all of them, and the importance of character. And Srila Prabhupada expected his leaders to exemplify the true character of a Vaishnava, which is the way we live, the way we interact with people, and the way we seriously cultivate our bhakti through our sadhana. It is so crucial. This building we're in is made out of mud blocks. You see, every one of these bricks is made of the dirt from the land that you're walking on when you walk outside. It's just the land. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, if we really look into what he gave us, it's incredible. Because in the early 1970s, I was living in New Vrindavan at the time, Srila Prabhupada gave us an order. You should build all of your buildings out of the mud of your ground. And he gave us certain ways in which it could be done. And they were called Prabhupada houses, because Prabhupada taught us how to do it. He said, this is how we should be living. Not baking bricks in fire, but just with your own land. Learn to make a house out of it. And actually, in those days, some people were living in Prabhupada houses. They were pretty happy. But then somehow or other, everyone went out in vans and started collecting things from all over the place. So there was a distraction. But it's interesting, because Prabhupada gave us that directive over 40 years ago. We came here, let's try to make a community the way Prabhupada wanted it. So let's make all our buildings out of the dirt. And we just looked into it, and we found traditional methods by which it can be done. And now these beautiful buildings are just made from our dirt. Srila Prabhupada talked about the glories of cows. Now, in many places in India, you see cow dung all over the place. Srila Prabhupada taught us that everything that the cow is given is sacred and could solve our economic problems. So we wanted to go a little deep into what Prabhupada was giving us, and we found these wonderful methods, traditional methods, can be combined with some modern things, where cow dung, you could cook your food with the cow dung patties, but on a larger scale, we have these tanks, just simple. No electricity, you just put the cow dung in it and let it ferment, and the gas from that goes right into our stoves. And practically everything you're eating for our whole community is cooked with the gas from the cow dung. And sewage. Most people aren't very inclined towards sewage. But Srila Prabhupada, he taught us this principle that try to see how you could serve Krishna everywhere. This verse in Bhagavad Gita, one who sees me everywhere and everything in me, for that person I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Yes? What does that mean? To see Krishna everywhere. Srila Prabhupada explains, it means in everything we see Krishna by how we can serve Krishna. We remember Krishna in a spirit of seva. So how to see Krishna in sewage? Doesn't mean we think the sewage is Krishna. That type of Advaitavad is unacceptable. But it's Krishna's energy, and it has a great potential by which we could serve Krishna. So through this, many of you will see this system. It takes, every time you flush your toilet, the sewage comes through natural process of just going through solar power, through gas, through flowing through stones and special roots and herbs. The sewage becomes pure water. And in the process, the papayas growing in most of our land are about this big. But at some times of the year where the sewage is being treated, they're this big. Some yogis came, they couldn't believe it. The devotee who was giving them the tour said, every time you flush your toilet, the papayas get bigger. One of the yoga teachers said, this is not a papaya, this is a poopaya. Not me, that was a yoga teacher. Why am I telling this? Because to see the potential. We're walking on the ground, but the potential is we can build an entire community of wonderful homes with this ground if we just see the potential in it. We see cow dung and we think, oof. But if we see the potential, we could cook for a whole community with the gas from that cow dung. What to speak of our own dung? It can be utilized if we see the potential. So Krishna consciousness means to see the potential of serving Krishna everywhere. And Srila Prabhupada saw the potential of great saintly Vaishnavas in every living being. When he was in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, he lived with the hippies. Every other spiritual teacher just kind of went there and gave some lessons and gave some mantras and left. Prabhupada was the only one who lived for months and months and months with the hippies. He didn't see them as hippies. Somebody asked Prabhupada, can you show me a miracle? And Prabhupada said, my miracle is I made hippies into happies. They were addicted to drugs and sex life, and they were eating meat, and they had no conception of God, and now they're literally teaching the world the highest principles of how to love Krishna, how to love God. How did Prabhupada make that transformation? Because he saw the potential. He saw in this dung there was an energy that could create prasad. How in this mud there's a potential to build a house that the whole world could live in the service of Krishna. But in order to have that vision of seeing that potential of devotional service and actually having that compassion to preach to others, it's necessary that we have to find that potential within ourselves. To taste that love of God within the storehouse of our own hearts, and then to distribute it without discrimination to others because we see that potential. Now, so many of us, when we were preaching in the early days or whatever service we were doing, distributing books, or myself, I was taking care of cows and doing artis, but I was thinking that I'm helping spread Krishna consciousness all over the movement, even though I'm just doing these simple things of milking some cows and doing some artis to the deities way up on a mountain that was miles away from anything or anyone. But I understood anything we're doing to help Srila Prabhupada in his mission, whatever service it is going to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, if we're just sincere. So the devotees didn't feel qualified. Who am I to preach? But on Prabhupada's order, we were just instruments of Prabhupada's grace, however unqualified we were. And it worked. But in order to really be an instrument of Srila Prabhupada, we actually have to really be connected to his instructions. And his foremost instruction was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's foremost instruction. Harinama, Harinama, Harinameva Kevalam Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. To chant the holy names of Krishna. That whatever service we do, whatever puja we do, its potency comes when it is connected to the sincere chanting of the holy names. So in our little seminar today of sadhana for leaders, I'd just like to share some of these thoughts that from Prabhupada and our previous acharyas' definition, without really strong sadhana and sincere sadhana, hearing and chanting in the association of devotees, then we're not leaders at all. Srila Prabhupada explains we could be material leaders, but without following these principles very carefully, we cannot be spiritual leaders. And the trick of Maya, what is religion is taken to be a religion, what is irreligion is taken to be religion, what is day looks like night, and what is night seems like day. So Maya will always be there to try to mix it up. That if we're doing something in a very material consciousness, she'll try to convince us that you are very spiritual. So Srila Prabhupada is giving us this very, very strong blessing in the form of an instruction and a warning. That without very sincere sadhana, we can be material leaders. But whatever our role, whatever our title it is, we can't really be, in his estimation, in Krishna's estimation, true spiritual leaders. Because the foundation is hearing the glories of Krishna and chanting his holy names and living with the character by which Krishna is pleased. Servant of the servant of the servant, to reveal himself through his holy names. In one place, Srila Prabhupada, many places, he writes, the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is not simply to defeat people philosophically. The purpose is to inspire people to chant the holy names. We need to have that faith, and we need to help each other. Maya is very strong. Prabhupada used that example of individual sticks are easily broken, but when they're bunched together and wrapped, then Maya cannot break. So our satsang, these beautiful types of opportunities where leaders come together to find unity in this foundational principle, hearing about Krishna, chanting Krishna's names. Nothing can stop our movement from expanding and growing in a wonderful, powerful way. Thank you very much.